The Letters That Shook America. It started with a taunt, not a scream, not a cry for help, but a letter. Handwritten, strange, and chilling. It arrived at the offices of major newspapers in 1969, claiming responsibility for a recent murder and promising more. Attached was a mysterious cipher, a code meant to be solved by the public. "This is the Zodiac speaking." That line would become infamous. The man behind it, a ghost with a pen, would taunt police, mock victims, and vanish into legend. He became one of the most terrifying, elusive serial killers in American history. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer, a predator who murdered in the open yet disappeared into shadows, and the decades-long hunt to uncover his identity. The Lake Herman Road murders, where the nightmare began. On December 20th, 1968, high school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday drove out to a quiet lover's lane on Lake Herman Road near Vallejo, California. It was the kind of place teenagers went to be alone. But that night, someone else was waiting. They were found shot to death next to their car, David killed at close range, Betty Lou gunned down as she ran. No fingerprints, no witnesses, just two young lives cut short. At the time, police thought it might be a tragic crime of passion. But 7 months later, they'd realize it was just the beginning. Blue Rock Springs, the killer sends a message. On the night of July 4th, 1969, another couple, Darlene Ferrin and Mike Mageau, parked at Blue Rock Springs. A car pulled in behind them. Moments later, the driver approached and opened fire. Darlene was killed. Mike survived barely. An hour later, a call came into police. Calm, precise, deadly. "I want to report a double murder. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." This was no random shooting. The killer knew what he was doing, and he wanted credit. For the first time, he made himself known. The Zodiac was no longer a suspect. He was a self-declared menace. The ciphers arrive, codes from a killer. Days after the Blue Rock Springs shooting, letters arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle, the Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each one contained a handwritten message, each signed with a strange crosshair symbol. And with them came the ciphers. Each newspaper received a third of a 408-symbol code. The Zodiac demanded they be published on the front page, or he'd cruise around all weekend killing lone people. The challenge was clear. If you crack this code, you'll know who I am. A high-stakes puzzle from a killer who treated murder like a game, and he wasn't bluffing. The code is broken, a chilling truth. Amateur code breakers Donald and Betty Harden solved the cipher just a week later. What they found was not a name, but a manifesto. "I like killing people because it is so much fun." He wrote about how people were the most dangerous animal of all, echoing themes from horror movies. He claimed he would collect souls for the afterlife. It was depraved, disturbing, and gave no clues to his identity. The Zodiac had lied. The puzzle didn't reveal his name, only his madness. He was playing with fear itself, and he was just getting started. Lake Berryessa, the killer in costume. On September 27, 1969, college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking near Lake Berryessa. A man appeared wearing a hood, a bib with his crosshair symbol, and a knife. He tied them up and stabbed them brutally. Then he walked away, leaving a message on Brian's car door. The Zodiac symbol, the date, and details of the crime, written in black marker like a signature. Cecilia died. Brian survived to describe the attack. It was unlike anything the Zodiac had done before. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to be feared. This wasn't just a killer anymore. This was theater. The killing of Paul Steen, a murder in the city. October 11th, 1969, San Francisco. Taxi driver Paul Stein picked up a passenger headed to Presidio Heights. Minutes later, he was shot in the head at point-blank range. This time, the killer didn't flee into the woods. He walked away down a quiet street. A teenager saw him. Police arrived too late. In a shocking twist, they were given the wrong description over the radio. white man instead of black, so they let the Zodiac walk right past them. Then came another letter. The Zodiac claimed he'd killed Stein. Enclosed was a bloody piece of the man's shirt. He was laughing at the world now, laughing at the cops. The taunting letters, fear in every envelope. Over the next few months, letters continued to pour in. Some were riddled with ciphers. Others threatened school children. One warned of a bomb that could blow up a school bus. The city of San Francisco lived in fear. Parents refused to let their kids walk alone. In one letter, the Zodiac claimed to have killed as many as 37 people, but only 5 were confirmed. Still, each new note sent shockwaves. He was writing more than he was killing now. It was psychological warfare, and it was working. The police were chasing shadows, and the Zodiac reveled in it. The ciphers that remained unsolved. After the first cipher, the Zodiac sent more, each more cryptic than the last. The 340 cipher, sent in November 1969, remained unsolved for 51 years. It was finally cracked in 2020 by a team of amateur codebreakers. The solution? Another rant. No name, no identity, just another twisted mind game. "I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me," he wrote. "I am not afraid of the gas chamber." Even decades later, his taunts echoed from the grave, as if he knew he'd never be caught. The suspects, shadows without faces. Over the years, dozens of suspects were investigated. The most famous? Arthur Lee Allen, a troubled man with disturbing behavior and connections to the killings. Handwriting experts were divided. DNA tests were inconclusive. There was evidence, but not enough. The Zodiac remained unidentified. Other suspects included a school teacher, a convicted child molester, even a possible connection to the Manson family. Theories flourished, so did hoaxes. Everyone had a theory, but no one had the truth. And that's what the Zodiac wanted all along, to become a legend, a phantom, a riddle with no answer. The legend lives on, a killer's final disguise. By the 1970s, the letters stopped. The murders ceased, the Zodiac vanished, but the mystery never did. Books were written, movies made, investigators dedicated their lives. Still, the case stayed open, still unsolved. In recent years, new forensic tools like DNA phenotyping offered hope. In 2021, a group calling themselves the Case Breakers claimed to identify a suspect, but law enforcement remained unconvinced. No charges, no closure. The Zodiac's final disguise was perfect: time. As years passed, memories faded and evidence degraded. But the fear, it never left. A cipher with no key. The Zodiac Killer wasn't just a murderer. He was an architect of fear. He used letters instead of footprints, codes instead of clues. He turned terror into theater. His identity may never be known, but his story will never be forgotten. He dared the world to catch him, and decades later, we're still trying. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the darkest corners of unsolved history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that still haunt us today.